It was January of 2005, and Dorry and I were newly married.
Sommer was finishing her PhD thesis at MIT, and I was training in transplant surgery at Johns Hopkins. One day when she picked me up from work, we had an interesting conversation.
It was a conversation about math and medicine.
A conversation about expanding kidney transplants.
Using integer programming and graph theory.
A conversation about creating a husband and wife collaboration
to solve a problem uniquely suited to this husband and wife working together.
You see, now this may come as a shock to you, but transplant surgeons don't usually talk to mathematicians.
And mathematicians don't usually talk to transplant surgeons, probably for the same reasons.
But it turns out that this conversation would save thousands of lives and fundamentally change the way we think about kidney transplants.
In fact, Dorry had just finished a kidney transplant. Actually, 2 transplants, where the donors had agreed to exchange kidneys.
Exchanging kidneys was kind of an unusual concept at the time. Here's how it works. If you have kidney failure, you either go on dialysis or you get a kidney transplant. You'll live twice as long with a transplant, so that's the better option. Now, if you want a transplant, one option is to sign up for the deceased donor waiting list. The problem here is that you're not the only one with that plan. In fact, 100,000 other people had that plan before you, and you get in line behind all of them. So you might wait 10 years for a kidney, you might get very sick, or even die before you ever get a kidney offer. That's pretty depressing.
But you might have a friend or a family member willing to donate to you. This gives you 2 advantages. The kidney lasts twice as long as one from a deceased donor, and you don't have to wait in line, so you don't suffer the consequences of years of dialysis.
The thing is, you have to be compatible with your donor, both blood type and HLA compatible. Blood type compatibility, that's like when you donate blood. O is the universal donor, but an O recipient is born with antibodies against both A and B, so is incompatible with any other blood type. HLAs are like little proteins that sit on your cells, including those in your kidney, and people can have antibodies against these proteins too. Antibodies are bad and cause rejection of the organ, so you need to be both blood type and HLA compatible. And if you are, that's great. We can do your transplant immediately. But there's about a 30% or higher chance you won't be compatible. And if you're not compatible, you're pretty much relegated to that waiting list behind those other 100,000 people. That's pretty depressing too, both for you and your loved one who wants to save your life by giving you a kidney.
But at Hopkins, they had a way around this.
So my boss, Robert Montgomery, would find incompatible pairs who were reciprocally compatible and have them exchange donors. So for example, this person can't donate to his loved one, and this person can't donate to her loved one, so instead they exchange, and this person donates to him, and that person donates to her, and 2 compatible transplants result. Voila.
Of course, you need to find matches that are reciprocally compatible, and that can be hard to do at one transplant center where there aren't that many incompatible pairs to mix and match.
But there are hundreds of transplant centers around the country, and therefore thousands of incompatible pairs. If we could create a system where transplant centers work together, lots of pairs could find matches, many more than could happen through just one transplant center.
And that's where math comes in.
The issue is deciding who matches with whom so that you get as many people transplanted as possible. Now, when Hopkins was just mixing and matching within its own patients, this was simple enough to decide. In fact, our coordinator, Janet, just used a magnetic board to find the matches.
But when you're thinking about matching up hundreds or thousands of patients, this requires mathematics, namely operations research, which is the discipline of applying advanced analytical methods to help make better decisions. Operations research, for example, finds the quickest driving directions, designs the least expensive airline routing, and helps sports teams decide when and where to play.
But unfortunately, not how to play. Anyway, I had studied operations research a little bit when I was a computer science major in college, so I knew we would have to turn to this field. And I knew we were very lucky because this was exactly the field Sommer was in. So in our 5-minute car ride, I explained the problem to Sommer.
And it was clear to me we could solve it together.
And then we parked the car, looked at each other, and said,
well, I guess we're going to be research partners.
Now, this was not something to endeavor upon lightly. I mean, we were life partners, and really good ones. We worked hard, had fun, and were generally very happy.
We were also dance partners.
That's actually how we met.
We did really well as dance partners. We choreographed routines. We taught and competed and performed all over the world, and we even won 5th place that year in the American Lindy Hop Championships.
We can also ask non-directed donors to participate. A non-directed donor is someone who comes forward to donate without any intended recipient, just wants to help someone who needs a kidney. Believe it or not, there are hundreds of folks like this. Some people call them altruistic donors, some people call them Good Samaritan donors, but from a purely practical standpoint, they're people whose donation is not directed to a given recipient. What we used to do is give their kidney to the person at the top of the waiting list, and one person would get transplanted, which is, of course, always a good thing.
But if a non-directed donor gives to the recipient of an incompatible pair, then that pair's donor can give to another incompatible pair, and so on. The non-directed donor solves the problem of reciprocal compatibility because there's no requirement at the end of a chain of donations to make sure the last kidney matches back to the non-directed donor.
So now this gift is multiplied. The non-directed donors are thrilled to learn that their one donation enables 2 or 3 or even 30 people to get transplanted. And then, at the end of the chain, a kidney still goes to the person at the top of the waiting list.
And all of these expansions go right into the graph and the integer programming model, so that a heavy-duty computational solver can search a huge space of potential answers and find the combination of matches that gives the most benefit.
And it's a good thing we have these mathematical tools to turn to because, like we discussed back in that car ride in 2005, kidney exchange is an exploding field. The year we started this work, only 30 patients got transplanted through an exchange, and only a small handful of centers were actually doing this. Since then, several thousand patients have been transplanted through an exchange, and this is now offered at more than 100 transplant centers. Congress even passed a bill formalizing the role of kidney exchanges.
Every one of these exchanges has brought new kidney donors into a system that desperately needs them.
Working together as husband and wife to make this happen has been incredible.
I love explaining to math majors that they should study integer programming so they can save lives with it. I mean, who wouldn't want to become a transplant mathematician?
So I guess we're pretty glad we took the plunge to become not only life partners and dance partners, but also research partners.
It's a huge advantage for us that we can discuss modeling details over spaghetti at dinner, or write a paper when we get stuck with an airport layover, both of which we've done, true story. But the real win is being able to share the intellectual excitement of math and medicine with your spouse at a deep level. Because I think we just admire each other more and more as we build these ideas together.
Yeah, what she said.